You are so much more. MicDropClub.com. Make life boom.
Hi, buddy. Welcome to another episode of the Mic Drop Club. Today, I'm super stoked. In the run-up to Christmas, we have somebody very, very special that's going to get us in the rightful frame of mind, the right reflective space to talk about all things to do with not only about personal development. She's a certified happy for no reason trainer. She's a life coach, a healer, a complementary therapist, and a counselor. So with no further ado, I want to welcome you all to the fabulous Shila Jassal. How you doing? You okay?
I'm good, thank you. I'm great, thank you.
Oh, brilliant. How's your day been thus far? Are you ready for Christmas and this festive period?
I am as prepared as I can be. I've done everything early, so it gives me that space and that time to relax and to think about, what else I may need to do. But I'm in a good place. I'm not feeling frantic. I'm not rushing around. I'm actually cruising into the next week of Christmas.
Oh, I like that. So, when you go outside there and go to your local supermarket, it almost looks like World War III out there.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of people frantically, getting themselves, I would say, at sometimes emotionally adrift, compromised in some instances. It's almost like they're fighting for resources when there are plenty of resources out there, like as if we're going to run out of turkey in the shops. I don't really get it, but I too get caught up in that rupture every year or so.
Yeah, I find the energy can be pretty manic when you do go into the supermarkets, and being very sensitive to energy generally, I have to kind of limit how much time I do spend queuing up at times and things, because you're right, people are quite frantic and they sort of very much kind of grabbing things and wanting things. But actually, there's enough resources and there's enough time. Everything will get sorted, as it always does, in the lead up to Christmas. So chill, everyone, chill. It's okay.
Just calm it down.
Calm it down.
Yeah, and when I looked on your website, the soulfulhappiness.com website, I read out the strap line there. She's a certified happy for no reason trainer. That just set me off, and just makes you smile. When you read something like that, you can't help but smile. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, happy for no reason for me means you don't have to wait for external circumstances or your ducks to be lined up in a row for you to be happy. You can be happy at any moment, any given moment. It's a shift. It's a shift in our attitude. It's also an internal response just to life. And for me, it's very much about just living in that gratitude energy and seeing the beauty and finding moments of happiness. And you hear that saying, the glass half full, but it's not being kind of Pollyanna-ish and saying, oh, life is merry, merry, merry. It's acknowledging that life comes with its challenges. However, even when life comes with its challenges, we can still have a very different attitude to how we embrace what life is giving us. Because for me, every moment is a blessing. Every moment is a gift. Every moment is teaching us something. And it's about opening ourselves up to whatever that teaching is, what that opportunity is that's right in front of us. And I would always reframe a challenge. For me, a challenge is an opportunity for something greater to reveal itself to you and for you to move through it and to grow in that moment. So for me, happy for no reason is that whole attitudinal kind of shift in how you embrace life.
Absolutely. No, I second that. And it's one of those things I live by too, those mantras. I surround myself with mantras, literally. I surround myself, even when I get custom garments made for me, I always weave in a mantra just to remind me of certain things. For this week, my mantra is momentum matters. So I'm trying to keep in the rhythm going, as probably leads into our previous conversation we had in the run-up to this conversation here. Dr. Wayne Dyer springs to mind when you talk about happiness for no reason. And he poses this question where he asks us to reflect on the universe that we're part of, that we're in. And he says the most important question we could ask ourselves is A, are we living in a hostile universe or friendly universe? And that question alone, the answer we provide ourselves will set ourselves up for the lifestyle that we will lead. As you said, life is a gift. We have to be grateful for that. Don't have to be. It's a choice. Some people choose not to make it that way. But with everything, there's a cause and effect. And the fact that we're having this conversation, two very happy people. The Mic Drop Club listeners, you're in for a double dosage of happiness, I must say. So what got you on this path? Let me know what the founder's journey has been like for you.
The happy for no reason path, the motivational coach path.
Oh, the collectives, I guess there's some of these things that you have done, you have not done it as, and I'm assuming, so forgive me if I'm getting this wrong. Some of these things you've gone through, you could do in parallel. There's no clear start, clear end. It's a combination of things that have come to you. But essentially, who are you? And how did you get on this path of, wanting to give back and sharing your knowledge of other people?
Yeah. So that big question, who am I? It's a question I'm still answering in a way, because it's always an unfoldment of who we are. And we can have so many labels. And I suppose when you went to my website or you look at my CV, there's a long list of credentials there. And I actually did go through a period where I was very much a high achiever, a striver, feeling like I had to prove myself all the time to be accepted, by other people. And I had this perfectionist streak in me that I had to be amazing. I had to be wonderful, just to be accepted by other people. For me, my journey has very much begun from a place of where I felt this sense of deficit, where I felt that I didn't have much confidence in myself, and even myself speaking to you now, you would not have never found me speaking to you. There was real shyness there, real meekness, not wanting to show anyone who I was. And I came from a family where I kind of felt I wasn't able to openly express myself, where although there was love there in its own way, there was a lot of culture restrictions that were put on, and so I had to. I felt like I couldn't be my authentic self initially. I had to modify who I was just to fit into these cultural norms, and as a result of that, I lost touch with who I was, and
Sure.
I was a bit like a chameleon. I kept shape shifting around whoever I was with for the longest time, I'd say, even into going into university and coming into young adulthood. I never really knew who Shila was. But then life brings people forward, brings people onto your path. It brings opportunities onto your path. And one thing I always had within me was a strong sense of the divine, a strong sense that there was an energy that permeated all of life, that was always there. And I had some experiences when I was younger where I could see spirit, I could connect with spirit. I felt the energy of God. I could hear music in my ears, orchestral music or choirs. And, you think, I always felt I was kind of between both realms at times. And then it kind of started to shut that down. And however, then I still believe that core spirituality. And I came from a very religious family, and that's the difference between religion and spirituality. I came from a religious family that we've got like a lineage in our family of a saint, So
Wow.
there was always an Indian saint. So we were always praying. We were always connected to the divine. And I was very philosophical, and I kept needing to get to the meaning of life. It was like it was almost an obsession. I needed to know what we were doing here. You want to come in? You
Yeah,
want to
I
come in?
do. I do want to come in because you're saying a lot there, and I just want to get some context
Yeah.
in terms of like what age did this start for you?
This started when I was I'd say about 12, 13.
About 12, 13. So you're coming
Yeah.
into adolescence as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I became a striver. I started to swallow books. I started to follow scriptures. I knew that even though my religion, the faith I was born into, was important, it didn't feel like it was going to be enough for me. So I immersed myself into different religions, different ways of life, Christianity, Buddhism. I explored it all, and I noticed these common threads, these links through them, these qualities of being a good, when I say good, being a self-realized human being, someone who was compassionate, who was kind, who was loving, and these common threads just wove themselves through every religion, and that's how I started to live. And and from that, I just had this. I guess I was born with it. I just had this sense of wanting to serve. I always wanted to
Good.
serve. And it
Good.
wasn't just the cultural conditioning where the Asian woman is having to serve for food, and we were, I was kind of. It
Subservient.
was, it was not that. Yeah, there was that.
Okay.
There was that element where you found yourself in that role. It's like, I don't want to be that subservient woman, but it was deeper than that. There was this real need just to serve people, to be of some, offer something of myself to them. And having said that, even when I was about 11, 12, I wanted to do voluntary work even then. And I remember asking at school, where can I do some voluntary work? And they said there's an old people's home. I hate that term, old people's home, but there's a home for older people not far from there. So I used to offer my time on Saturdays, and I'd just go and I'd just sit with them, and I would just talk with them, and I'd just be there. And they just loved having some company. And so that never left me, and I was always wanting to give something back to the community.
Wow. Okay.
But then I met
You're packing in a lot in there.
Yes,
Packing a lot.
I'll keep stopping, because I think when I can see that you want to come in,
I'm thinking of, for the listeners, because there's so many segues that we can go down in terms of what you've gone through and what you're trying to continue on in doing, the great work that you're doing. So I just want to make sure that everything's rounded. And on that note, we have to big up and give a mic drop salute to Wendy for putting us together.
Okay, guys, everybody ready?
So what we do on the
Atomic mic drop.
Yeah. Bombs of love, essentially, yeah? And we do it in post-production. So, Wendy, you're going to get the first mic drop for putting us together. And I do appreciate that, because in speaking to you for just this few moments, this calling. So let's have a conversation around a calling. You spoke of just wanting to do volunteering and seeking out opportunities to volunteer. I've been working with some people who want exposure in certain jobs, certain work environments, and then they want to be volunteering to give them access to an opportunity for career progression. This volunteering is completely different in sense of you're just looking to connect with people and share those stories with them. So did that put you at loggerheads in any shape or form with your, say, cultural expectations? What was like growing up in the home that, no, actually, I want to dedicate my weekends doing this when I could be doing that, and there's no monetization for that. What did that look like in your house?
There was an element of surprise that I was giving up my time to do something, and friends who were very monetized, like time equals money, would say, "What? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? You should be having fun. Yeah, what are you doing? Sitting, going to, old people's home, would use a better term, when you could be having fun." So I always had the bit where I felt a bit of a misfit. I felt like I wasn't normal. in that sense. But I didn't let that get me down. But I was made to feel I was abnormal initially, just for having that need to serve. My mum, bless her, who's now in spirit, she was very much a server, and she was always giving to others, but she was proud of me. And she would say, you know, my little girl's doing this. And that kind of that really gave me a lot of energy and reinforcement as well. But that wasn't a reason I was doing it to please my parents. I was doing it because there was this drive inside me that needed to give back. And I believe that there's many of us here who, light workers, if you like, people of service, who just have that intrinsic need to give back. And we're not about the profit making. We're not about the status. We're definitely not about the money, because if that was the case, I'd probably be retired by now. We're not about any of that. We're just this need to, we have that compassionate nature, and we see a need, and we want to step in, and we want to give back to others. And I guess there's a part of us that knows that we've got some skills there, something within us that knows that we can do that. Because why would you want to put yourself in those situations voluntarily when you could be doing an infinite number of other things? It's a choice point there, right there.
Absolutely. And you spoke about skills. And again, I want to bring you back to the 12-year-old you who has this sense of need. And I guess it comes with a sense of urgency as well. You have to do it now. You don't know why, but you need to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me what a 12-year-old knows in terms of skills to add any value in an older people's home. Talk me through that.
The 12-year-old my 12-year-old knew that just her going to the old people's home and sitting with them, with her energy, would bring something to the table for them. And she didn't have to be a great conversationalist. She knew that she wasn't going to be a great conversationalist at that point. She was just going to be Shila. But there was something fresh, some freshness, some burst of energy. And I think, even then I was a good listener. I could really just listen to people, and people would talk. I've even had situations where people would just follow me onto a train or a bus and start talking to me. Not literally follow me on, but sitting with me and start talking to me. Sure. So there was something about the fact I knew people could talk to me. And I felt that when I went in, I could offer that. And I wonder sometimes what made me go to an old people's home. I think there was the wisdom. There was the wisdom that the elders had that I was seeking on some level too. So it was a giving back, but it was also like I liked being around their energy. I loved being around their energy.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I sort of was older than my years in that sense. When I was reading all these books on philosophy, I was still trying to get to the heart of life, the meaning of life. And these were the types of people that I felt most at home with at the time.
Brilliant. And that's your first mic drop club.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, everybody ready? Atomic mic drop.
As a nurse by profession for over 20 years, I started off in old people's homes.
Oh.
Yeah. As a nurse, I'm also an engineer as well, but as a nurse, in terms of that hat on, there's something unique about putting yourself in a situation, an environment where you have wisdom. You've got people that have lived fuller lives than yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So when I asked you about the 12-year-old you going there, I saw it as a marriage in terms of, actually, I might not have the earth years on my side, but I've got the ears and the will and the heart to listen to your stories. And I'll take these stories and I'll paraphrase them back to you to bring them back to life, show you that they are of value, you are of value, and equally so those lessons will live on in the way I'll share them beyond this interaction. So many times I've been influencing policies. I'm saying, look, older people want time. Loneliness is the biggest killer, I would say, in the UK and most of the Western world, because the way we live our lives, it's me, 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 me all the time, and people are living further and faster lives than ever. But equally so, children have a desire to talk and listen. It's the middle ground that doesn't have time for either camps. Parents are too busy working 2 or 3 jobs, cost of living is so high. And then they don't have time for their own kids, but older people got time for their grandkids. And we're seeing that connection. So anytime older people around young people, it gives them also a sense of life. It re-energizes them. You gave more than just your your years. You gave your innocence. You gave your purity to them. And that was, I just want to salute you on doing that. And there's a lot of value in doing that as just a way of, I think societies should be shaped up. In most tribal cultures, that's how it is. But somehow here we've kind of lost the way. So back to this calling.
Yes.
This calling that you have. So now it's starting to give shape. It's starting to give shape. You're starting to form the direction that you want to go in life. And you said you are a high achiever academically. Yeah, you're consuming books. You're ravenous in your consumption of knowledge.
Yes.
Correct? Right.
Yes.
Where were you seeing the biggest disconnect in terms of what you're reading, what you're bringing in one direction, and what your being is telling you the answers are, or how you're rationalizing what you're reading, and how did you manage to get yourself through those periods, or you're still going through that?
Yeah, another great question. I found that when I was reading, it was touching on some truths on some levels that I've kind of rung true, that kind of had the aha moments with them. And some of them listeners may not be able to, be able to relate to or not. Like rebirth and the cycle of life, reincarnation, those kind of concepts. So a lot of them kind of spoke to me, and I also felt that there was a lot of things that I understood intellectually, but I needed to experience them. I needed to experience what it was like to feel a sense of oneness, let's say, with others, a sense of oneness with the universe. How did I connect into my spiritual essence? How did I connect into my purpose? For the longest time, I kept asking myself, what am I doing here? What is my purpose? And when I came from this very challenging background, in the sort of, we've all got challenging things that happen in our childhood, but when I came from a challenging background, I kept thinking, I did go for a period where I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. This world isn't kind enough. This world isn't like loving enough. I don't know where I fit in, and I felt very kind of lost. I felt very confused about who I was, because I was whatever people needed me to be at one point. I was lots of disparate parts, if you like. And reading the books in many ways helped me to make sense of my place in the world. It helped me to understand you're not here in a random way. You're here because there's a purpose for you to be here. And it also satisfied something on a very soulful level that just reminded me of the mysteries of life, the mysteries of living. And that's what I started to embrace. I started to embrace some of these spiritual truths, and I started to practice them. And that's how I got into healing. That's how I got into meditation. I started to, I believe life brought spiritual teachers on my path, and every one of them held a very important key to my journey of discovery, to the point I used to go to India and I used to go to ashrams, and I used to sit on the cold marble floor at 4 o'clock in the morning and meditate and do mantras and do many things now. You think, wow, it's really, really involved a lot of discipline, but I would do these things because there was a part of me that knew it was helping me. It was helping me to understand myself. And that's not everyone's journey, but it was my journey of reconnecting to my true essence. And when I say true essence, I don't mean your adapted self, your modified self. I'm talking about that part of you that is your purest essence, that part of you that speaks to you on that silent, that quiet voice, that knows what you're doing here, that knows what you're all about, that knows what drives you, what fuels your passion, that part. So for me, it was removing layers in many respects. And people often talk, don't they? You spend the first half of your life kind of taking on all this conditioning and whatnot, and the second half kind of clearing the layers so that you can really step into who you are and your mission.
Absolutely. They say that the human lives two lives. The second life will begin when you realize that life is finite.
Yes.
So I understand that completely. And for some people, they go to their last breath and they realize that. Somebody I've worked in palliative care for years, I've held the hands of many people that took their last breath. I've been honored and blessed enough to hear it and to see life transform literally in front of me. I've seen and I've heard it. I know it intimately, that those conversations that are said, and I hold that space with grace.
Yes.
You spoke about authenticity, and I think you wanted to say something there, but I just wanted to pick your brains around authenticity. It's a very loaded word. It's word, like, for the last 5 years, it's the authenticity everywhere. Your authentic self. Your authentic self is to the point that people who are not authentic are claiming to be authentic. Because how much of us is, and you spoke about layers, stripping off layers. I'll give you an example. I've got a young cousin of mine, and went to pick her up. And when I was dropping her to see somebody, she forgot a mobile phone. And she would not want to proceed on the journey until she got a mobile phone back, because she had outsourced everything. Paraphrasing her own words, her whole being is inside that mobile phone.
Sure.
So when people are feeling disconnected from their actual self, and they've assumed or embraced an identity that they think is their own, A, do you challenge? B, how do you get them to, if that is their timing, to see there's so much more than what they're experiencing? Because this will speak to my colleagues who work in children and adolescent services as well. They're going through this drama. There's young people, there's a broad awakening amongst young people around authenticity. Be your authentic self. Hence, they're exploring things about their very nature that older people are struggling to reconcile. But there comes a time where they are in a society that's the most technologically advanced society that's ever walked this planet. So they are the first to explore, what does it mean to be me? What does it mean that I have this gender? What is it that they're the first to actually be in the situation where they can go there with far more assertiveness than ever before? So how do you reconcile, or how do you support people around authenticity?
Yeah. So for me, authenticity is just being as real as you can, warts and all, in that sense, because we put so many shoulds and oughts and restrictions on our being, and a lot of them are old programs that we are running, where we've maybe had some trauma in our past that told us you can't, if you do X, Y, then you're a good person, you're a good girl, you're a good this and that. Or there's been that critical voice, and then we internalize that critical voice and it becomes part of us. So for me, authenticity, And just going back to young people, they're very much into identity formation at the moment. They're very much in that transitionary phase. So for me, let them try things out, let them experiment, let them do what they need to do as they decide what defines them, because they won't know who they are unless you have space and you have time to almost play, if you like, with identity formation. And it's those people who haven't had the opportunity to play with identity formation, and I put myself in that category early on in my life, who become almost caricatures of who they really are. They never really know who they are. They feel this sense of unease, this sense of something's lacking, something's missing. And it can take a major life event. It can take a major transition point in their life for them to wake up and really start to look at who am I? What are my needs? And when I say who am I don't mean you get an instant conclusive answer to who you are, because we're always in a process of becoming who we are. But it's more a case of tapping back into who we were, that child of ourselves, that essence of who we were. That child is the closest link to our soul, because that child is pure innocence, just the pure energy of expression. And when we tap into those parts of ourselves, and that's how I work with my clients, it frees up so much. We let go of all that old conditioning that has limited us on so many levels. And for some people, that can be very discombobulating for a while, because they don't have a sense of who they are. But at the same time, it's so freeing, it's so liberating, because it enables them to be honest with themselves. Because if we spend our whole life trying to please other people, or worry about what other people think, or allow the whole conditioning of society to define who we are, we're going to miss the opportunity to live the purpose that we're here to live. That's why when I see people walking around in, with multicolored hair, or wearing zany clothes, or whatever they're doing, or they're just being themselves, and people say, oh, they're a bit odd, I think I celebrate with them, because I say they are in their fullest expression right now. So for me, authenticity is just being in your fullest expression in the moment, who you really are, and allowing yourself to express that, obviously within moral codes of living in society, but expressing yourself for who you are. And when I talk about layers, I talk about layers only in the sense of there's conditionings that just need to be let go of, and those conditionings, they can be let go of quite quickly. I've seen clients have very transformative experiences once we get to a core wound of what it is that's caused them to disconnect from who they are in that moment.
Sure. Yeah, and I guess working with clients that have gone through, say, bereavement, life-defining, life-changing event, the way they view what has happened to them has a strong correlation to the outcome. So you find some people go through trauma. And I remember working with two twins. Is it two twins? They
Two
were
twins.
a twin.
Yes.
Yeah. Both identical, and they were coming from war-torn Somalia at the time. Both arrived into the country after witnessing some of the most heinous acts on their family members. Both of them saw their mum sadly taken out by guerrilla warfare and all that stuff. They've seen everything firsthand, and they were, I think, 15 years of age.
Yeah.
Now, those twins identified and reconciled what happened to them in completely different ways. One went on to be completely psychotic, and then end up having drug-induced psychosis. The other one went on to be a doctor. Both seen exactly the same thing. It's the way we frame what is happening to us. Yeah. And I guess when we realize the frame and realize our position in observing the frame is the differentiation between more and more trauma that we're going to be reliving every single day, and being able to move on and making sense of what has happened, and also being able to live life, because life, it can be very challenging. I've worked with some of the most challenging individuals in terms of stuff they've gone through. But one thing I can say, post-COVID, there's been a big shift in how we understand trauma, or how the general public takes trauma, cultural trauma, as I can talk to for my own culture in terms of expectations. You're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, only sons, siblings, and all that. There's so much to unpack in terms of cultural identity as well. Then somewhere in that quagmire is you, and you have to figure out what the you is, and what does the you need for sustenance? Because if you don't feed the you, you get the ego coming, and then that overrides everything. Then this duality keeps transpiring. So I was keen to find out from you, and you broke it down in such a beautiful way. I want to move on to, very quickly, they say that people who are dreamers lack accountability. Yeah, they say it's just common. Like, if you go down the path of spiritual alignment, you're not going to do anything in your life.
Right.
Because you can get yourself in, it's like a dog chasing its own tail. You won't move. What do you say to that? Because let's do some myth busting. Yeah, I think
that makes me laugh. Yeah. Dreamers, I think if there was more dreamers in the world, gosh, the world would be a very different place. So dreaming for me isn't someone who's got their head in the clouds, who's just sitting there, just having fantasies and dreaming about this and that. For me, everything starts here. Everything starts in our imagination. And if you're having some dreaming going on, I mean, the shamans talk about dreaming time. Dreaming is so important. Dreaming is where things first begin before they solidify into the external world. In fact, which is the real world here? Is our dreaming world the real world, or is our actual world? They're more one and the same, the type of reality that we live in. But dreaming for me is someone who's able to tap into a higher consciousness, someone who's able to tap into this higher energy and get that inspiration, which then is that catalyst that will propel them into action at the right time. And if we don't have any dreamers, how are we ever going to have the innovators, the visionaries, the groundbreakers in society? So, hallelujah. I applaud all the dreamers in this world.
Mic drop for you for that. Absolutely. And time to dream, time to play, like playful playness is so important. I remember being at a job interview quite a few years back, and there were in the waiting area, there were magazines. And to the side of that, there was a box full of kids' toys. My spirit wanted to play with the Lego.
Yeah.
My spirit said, just I wonder what you can build with that. There were some tires there, some wheels and stuff like that. All the pieces, I knew I could make something that was super cool out of that. For this job, I picked up the magazine and held it on my lap, pretending to read it while I was waiting for my job interview. And I didn't get the job in the end, but I remember sitting in there thinking, I'm such a fraud. I'm such a fraud. What is this all about? I didn't want to read that magazine anyway. I'm now pretending, consciously I'm aware that I'm not being true to myself, so that would have played out in the way I spoke.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. No, that's amazing. So yeah, absolutely. It does mean action. I think that's where the biggest myth is. Some of the most iconic buildings, arts, industries, Steve Jobs will testify to that. Best music, the Beatles will testify to that. Was born out of dreaming and being able to make a connection very, very quickly into the physical dimension. Now, as a futurist, I call myself a creative futurist. That's me in a nutshell. Because I play around with technology. Now we've got the digital space. So we've almost got three planes of existence. We've got the dream state, the physical state, and we've got the digital state now.
Yes.
There are millionaires being born every single day, literally in the digital space now, and they do everything digital. Nothing has a physical parameter to it at all. So this makes navigating what we're doing such an exciting time to be involved in this space, because our creative tools now have been unleashed. We can scale up. Some of the therapy sessions you're doing, you might say to yourself, I wish I could see more people in one day. If so, how could you do that? There are digital tools that can enable you to do that.
Yeah. And there's also understanding, we could go into a very sort of metaphysical discussion, which I know will be a topic for another time, but there's also the whole concept of the illusion of time and how we work with time. And we can very much kind of jump timelines, and we can contract time, we can expand time, we can do many things with time. So time's has got a very sort of funny quality to it. You can achieve sometimes something in an hour that can take you a whole day, and like a year can feel like a week, and a week can feel like a year. So I don't allow myself to get too caught up in this sort of time paradigm too much, because I know that things can come in an instant. Or everything's about timing as well. Like we're going to be where we need to be at that time.
Yeah, the fact that I was brought up to fear anybody that doesn't respect time.
Mm-hmm.
Because time in itself is the benefactor. We cannot hold on to it. And there are various exercises we can do. I do this to young people all the time. If you want to freeze time, like literally freeze time, you get out a book and you immerse yourself in a book. Time stands still.
Yes.
You reach a certain level when you're running, time will stand still. Anytime that your spirit is fully engaged in something, time has no meaning. I've worked, they say you're inspired. Inspired comes from the Latin inspirator, meaning you're in spirit. In spirit doesn't work with the same physical time clocks that we have here. So when I'm in the zone and I'm working away, being creative, playing around with digital stuff, I might not eat, I might not even sleep. The body doesn't feel it needs any of those things, and so there's something to be said about the time and space that we're in now, when work in itself is being redefined. Whereas before, you go to work, you have to have bums on seats between 9 and 5. That's how you demonstrate value. That you were actually there between 9 and 5. And then somebody says, but I don't need to sit there between 9 and 5 to give you the same value. I can do that in a day, in an hour. Why should I have to do 40 hours in a week to demonstrate my value when I can do it in a shorter period of time? So everything at the moment is up for grabs. And I think the human psyche is awakened to that, because COVID gave people a glimpse of something different. You spoke about the layers being peeled, right?
Mm-hmm.
COVID made partners who have been married happily for 10, 15 years suddenly hate each other. It brought trauma as well when that was spilled onto children and whatnot. But essentially, it was a period of evaluating. Like, why do I even go to work? This whole culture of ships passing the night because both people are working, only connecting for maybe 20 minutes of meaningful conversation per day and living for the Saturday or Sunday. People are like, no, there's something more.
Yes. The paradigm is very much shifting, and it's bringing more balance in that sort of work-life balance, in the sense that it's not all about the sort of industrialness of people working hard. You can still work hard, but you can have a more of a holistic way of living now. And I think that's where the shift has happened. And it's beautiful to behold the changes that are happening. It can only improve.
So somebody that's into transformation, into change, how do you deal with change yourself? Now, what does change mean for you?
Yeah, well, this is actually my passion, the topic of change. I'm writing a book at the moment called Transition into Greatness, which I hope to have published next year. next spring. And that's all about change. And it's all about how do you embrace change. For me, I've broken it down into different stages, but I want to sort of go into length here because of time. But for me, how do I deal with change? For someone who hated change most of her life because she was clinging on to a sense of security, I actually embrace change now. I love change. Change means my soul is ready. My soul is ready for the next step, the next level up. And so when change comes, I always say, thank you. What is it that you need to show me? What is it you're showing me? And to me, it's about trusting the process. It's about trusting there's a divine flow of energy that is orchestrating your life. That change, no matter how it comes in, it can come in as a gentle wind. It can come in as a tornado, a volcano, and come in an infinite number of ways. But when it comes in, it comes with purpose. And then that change, I learned to ride the waves. The waves may be rocky for a while. And that's where I have this whole segment of how you work with your emotions and embrace the what is, the surrender to what is. And as you move through different stages, you start to see literally the wood from the trees. And you start to see the purpose and the meaning behind it. So for me, change is actually one of my passions. It's something I feel I'm here to do to help people understand change and the beauty and the power behind change and what it means for each person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I second that and I underscore it and I super strike it and everything I need to do to make that resonate. I've been in change for 20 years and that's exactly my passion, and transformation is everything for me. Helping people overcome that barrier, because again, it speaks to culture change. It speaks directly to any and every culture, no matter what it is. A classroom has its culture, institutions have their own culture, families have their own culture. Once change comes, it points directly at the culture. Some people are designed to maintain the culture. So if I give the analogy of a herd of elephants, I know what my culture is doing at any given period of time, but I'm the elephant at the back that wanders off and goes back to the herd with new information. I know where I am culturally, but I'm not slave to my culture. In fact, I subscribe to the view that culture is not your friend. You know, it's not your friend. Culture only exists for the culture. In many instances, I've supported people where culture has been their direct enemy to the self.
Yes.
Because it speaks to conformity all the time. And all the changes I'm trying to do as a councillor, deputy mayor, all of that kind of stuff is to challenge perceptions and culture. So very quickly, we done a competition 2 months ago for jollof rice, a jollof rice competition, right? The whole concept was we want to open up the culture of West Africa cuisine. I'm not West African, but I've eaten jollof rice. I think most people have now had a taste of jollof rice. Have you had jollof rice?
Yeah, I have.
You have. Right. So we thought using Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, clothing, shelter, let's use that as an anchor to get the community together and have a competition where we're going to have anybody and everybody's invited to make their own version of jollof rice. White people, Asian people, West Indian people, African people. We opened up to everybody for this competition. And we marked on 3 categories: best tasting, first presented, and most creative, just so that everybody has a chance to win. Because you want to use that as a way of, say, the Ghanaian, Nigerian communities to share, this is what we do in our culture, but you too can be part of it. As common as it is for me to make an Italian dish, but I'm not Italian. We want people to feel that way about jollof rice. What you found was, when I was going to all the local restaurants in Midway, trying to encourage them, it's like, only my tribe can make the best jollof rice. It was holding on, protecting the jollof rice. We had a successful first event. Yeah, won by Nigerian restaurant owner. She won the best tasting category, but it still comes down to the same thing, that you can challenge a culture on any given aspect of it. Because jollof rice, if I was to say to you that rice is not grown in these countries where it's a staple meal, somebody had to go to another country to bring the rice in,
Yeah.
and add it to traditional recipes to make the jollof rice. Somebody had to go away to come in, because
Yeah.
some people make it with curry powder that's not indigenous to Ghana or Nigeria. Somebody had to go away to come in. You know, some people like it with, say, corned beef. Everybody has to bring something. That's how we evolve. So when people are challenged by when the cultural values are being compromised, but I'll give another example very quickly. Somebody might find love in another culture. Culture
That's
says
it.
no.
Perfect. Yeah.
It says
Yes.
no. And then you ask yourself, as a young person going through trauma, my heart is saying yes. This other person's heart is saying yes. Culture's saying no. Then you ask, okay, who controls my culture?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. These are deep.
who is that person? And there's no person to be found. It's collective. It's a collective acceptance that this is the way we do things around here. But there's nobody at the steering wheel.
No, that's right. And there's major cultural shifts all the time, aren't there? And we're going through major shifts at the moment. And it's a bit like the 100 monkey syndrome, for those who are familiar with it. You know, it takes 100 monkeys in a remote island to make a change in behavior, and it has an effect on butterflies' wings somewhere else.
Yeah.
So when enough people wake up and make a shift in attitude or behavior, it affects everybody else. And you think, how did that happen? I don't remember reading about that change, but it's because somehow we're all connected, aren't we? We're all connected on that level. Definitely.
Brilliant. So have you always been, because to be in this path, we spoke very briefly at the beginning, you had to break the mold.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of radicalization, which used to be my favorite word since, but it can't be now because of all the connotations of it.
Yes.
But the word radical is still a very beautiful word. It flows nicely off the tongue, and it means that which is what you are doing. You are a radical thinker. You know, you don't think in the box. You're out of the box. So in this spirit of challenging, where does that come from?
I've always had it. I've always had that part of me that never... I sort of looked at the status quo and how things were, and I never took it on face value. I always could see other ways. And I don't know if that's my kind of philosophical background, but it was like I could dissect the parts of things and look at them and go, yeah, but that's come together like that, or that's working like that, but there's another way. So I could almost transcend the parts of things and look at them from different angles. And so I've never, and I think partly wanting to break free from cultural conditioning made me a bit radical. And I don't think I did anything like, I left in cause devastation or distraction in my actions. But for me, it was an internal kind of shift of looking at what radical meant. For me, I don't always sit there and think, oh, I'm radical. I just think I don't accept things at face value. I can see there's different ways. I mean, even during COVID, which is another topic, you look at things very differently as well, of how what's being said to you and what the narrative is. I think I've always been the sort of person that will look at a narrative, the running narrative, and I will question it, not in a rebellious way, but what else is possible right here? What else is going on here? And I like to sort of think I can look at things quite objectively and not take sides. And there's that mediator part of me, like I'm a trained mediator. I can look at both sides of something and then have that synthesis, that bit in the middle where I can kind of make my own sense of it. But I I absolutely value everyone's opinions, everyone's points of view, but I've never been that person that would just be a sheep, that would just accept something.
There's definitely no sheep in this conversation.
No.
That is for sure. So
Mm.
as we're going full circle in the first and hopefully many conversations that we're going to have, what's the future look? What are your future plans for 2025, and how can people get access to you?
My future plans for 2025, I know you and I had a bit of a conversation today about it, is to get my podcast out. So that may even be before 2025 comes, the Big Ben strikes 2025. I'm going to get my podcast out. So my podcast is called True Face, TRUE, and then face, as in face. So a True Face. I'm going to get that out. I'm going to have beautiful, love, quality conversations like we're having now with guests, and it's all about that topic around authenticity. But it's not just authenticity about being your true self. It's also about standing in your power. It's how you show up in the world. It's going to have many different levels to it. The other thing I'm intending to do is to get my book out, and when my book comes out, Transitioning to Greatness, which is all about change and transition points, I am intending at some point, and what I want to just say quickly is, when I do my vision boarding, I am not rigid. I will have my dreaming, I will have my inspiration, but I leave room for the miracles. I leave room for the something greater to always come in around whatever I'm visioning, because I can never fully know the potentiality of anything that I'm envisioning. So I allow the room for that. But within that, I'm going to start to do some retreats at some point, around these topics.
Don't forget me. Don't
I
forget
won't
me
forget you. I
in
will
your
never forget you,
retreats.
Douglas. We are connected on a very deep soul level already. I can sense that. And I'm so grateful that Wendy put us in touch. I'm really great that our paths are crossed. There's some of the things, and there may be a job change at work, which I can feel imminently is coming, but I'm ready for it, and we'll see what that brings.
Absolutely.
And final thing I've got to say, most important thing, quality time with family, friends, and loved ones. Always. It's about human connection.
Now, viewers, you're ready to start your Christmas, okay? It starts now. You're in the right frame of mind. You're reflective. Your value system has been compromised and shaken up a little bit. Now you understand what we've been talking about here on this platform for such a long time. So on the behalf of Mic Drop Club, we are super, super stoked and happy to share the platform with you. Most definitely. And we look forward to further conversations in the new year. You guys stay blessed, take care of yourself and each other, and we are.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to check out micdropclub.com and get the show notes and useful links. Subscribe to the podcast. Don't just live life, make life boom.